Hello, everyone. About 2 weeks ago, I released a video which talks about 12 mistakes that PhD students often make. After watching that video, I got requests from some students to make a small presentation on the common mistakes that PhD thesis supervisors make, which is the other side of the PhD research. So I have made a small presentation on that, and I will share my slides. It's a smaller presentation, but I will try to cover everything that I have observed uh, and during a long academic career of mine at IIT Kanpur. I'm not saying that I have not made those mistakes. I have also made those mistakes, but it will be good if some new thesis supervisors see what kind of errors they make and what are the consequences of those errors for their own career and also for the career of students. So to share the screen, this is 5 mistakes that many thesis supervisors commit. This may be mistakes committing knowingly, or this may be that sometimes unknowingly, because these are the conventional things and everybody behaves in a certain manner. So a new thesis supervisor also follow the steps and start behaving in the same way. But it will be good if you are a new thesis supervisor and you are going to admit PhD students under your supervision to watch this small video and ensure that you are not going to make these mistakes. As I have divided these mistakes into a number of categories. First and the most important mistake is the academic mistake. And this academic mistake includes accepting PhD students to guide in areas in which they have no prior expertise. This is very common. And in my department, even when I was head of the department, I warned about this. You can also say that I have also committed this mistake sometimes, but it doesn't help anyone. Because of the compulsion of the institute or university or the department that you must guide PhD students, or that without guiding 2 students you will not be considered for the post of associate professorship. So you randomly admit students without looking at the area in which he or she wants to work, and whether you are academically competent. Is it ethical, and are you academically competent to guide students in that area? And sometimes you start guiding students in areas in which you have not published a single paper. I have seen some supervisors admitting students even before they have published a single paper in any academic area in their career. So obviously there will be difficulties in guiding students, and it's not ethical also to accept students in areas in which you have not worked. So think carefully, and if for the reasons of organizational promotions, etc., you need to take students and guide in areas in which you yourself have not published any paper, then work with the students. Let 6 months, 1 year be spent in collective preparation, and then only research, PhD research starts. Uh, Entrance in the PhD program in India, and this is my experience, and this is also the experience of other faculty members in my institute and also in other universities and other institutes, that the entrance in the PhD program in India, which in social sciences means that they have done MA or MPhil at the university level somewhere, they lack the preparedness to do research. They lack a clear understanding of research, and they need academic guidance for which they depend on their supervisors. So if the supervisor himself or herself has not done sufficient research in that area to be able to guide new PhD students, then one should refrain from admitting students in those areas. Or you first take up a research project, maybe a consultancy project, do some research on your own, publish papers, 1 or 2 papers, at least 2 papers I would recommend, and then only admit students in that area. Otherwise, both you and your student will suffer. There is another extreme. We have also seen some very scholarly persons and even senior persons um, uh, and who start writing PhD thesis of their student on their own. I don't know why they do so. Maybe they want to show that they are still active and they can guide research or they can publish papers through students' work. And so whatever be the reason, this other extreme is equally undesirable. What is this? The other extreme is this situation in which the supervisors themselves write the thesis of their students. This is not good for students' growth, obviously, in the long run. Sometimes students may have even difficulty in facing the selection committee when he or she goes for consideration of appointment to a faculty position as assistant professor in some other university. And now, what does this term expertise mean to me? Expertise includes knowledge of the academic debate that you are working in a particular area, economics, sociology, management, psychology, whatever. In that area, have you identified an area and the debate which has been going on in that area for a long time, for last 5 to 10 years at least? And there are some people who take one position on the subject. There are other people who take the other position, and different researches do not come to a definite conclusion. So the debate goes on, and people defend their work by telling that they have used a better methodology or they have used a better conceptual framework or whatever, and yet the debate is not resolved. I always say that behind a good PhD topic, there is a long debate. Sometimes students think that they should work in an area on which nobody has worked in the past. Remember that only those areas in which nobody is interested, means this is academically uninteresting to work in that area, can be that area. Otherwise, you should also remember that your PhD work, you belong to a community of social scientists. You belong to a community of scientists, and this community is global, international. So just because somebody has not done any research in your university does not mean that no research has been done, no good contribution has been made in the past. So knowledge of the academic debate, theories which can be applied in that area. And by theory, I do not mean the grand theory, the theory of Karl Marx or theory of Durkheim or theory of Spencer or Max Weber. By theories, I mean theories which have been applied to resolve a particular problem in a definite area of research. And what are the concerns of the researchers? You must have, if you are going to admit students in some area, you must have a good knowledge of the academic debate at the international level, theories and concerns. You must also have a sound understanding of methods used in the concerned area in the past. It may be quantitative methodology, it may be qualitative methodology, and then there are so many methods in each. you must have, suppose you are saying that you are guiding a student in qualitative work, and the student is supposed to use grounded theory. Have you made yourself familiar with what the grounded theory is? Who is the proponent of this theory, or who are the proponents of this theory? What did they say? In which situations, in which countries, and to study what grounded theory was ever used? What were the uh, conclusions and implications of those studies? And whether your research area or area of your student actually requires application of grounded theory, whether you have understood the grounded theory adequately or not. Just saying that you have used grounded theory and referring to one or two papers using grounded theory is not enough. Then knowledge of various databases. These days, this is very, very important. Knowledge of various databases such as the Web of Science, Scopus, Gestor, etc., and their use. This point is absolutely important for reviewing literature. I remember when I was PhD student, nobody ever asked us how did how did we obtain our literature. When we refer to some books or journals or research paper, specific research papers, or any other thing, it may even be a newspaper article. We were not asked how did I select my literature. But today, in international journals, it's very often that the reviewers ask, how did you identify your literature? And you have to say that you use Web of Science or Scopus or this or that, and these were the items according to which you made the search, and so many articles and books appeared. Then you use some inclusion or exclusion criteria, and finally you landed up with these 15 or 20 or 50 articles on the basis of which you are writing a research paper. So your literature is not random. You have made a computer-based and your best effort to identify representative and relevant literature in your area of research. This is what is required. Then knowledge of donors in the chosen field of research, so that students' work gets due financial support not provided by the university. A thesis supervisor may say that this is not his or her concern, and university after all pays some scholarship, fellowship of the university, or from CSIR or ICSR or some other source, or all those who have qualified GRF, and in some universities even NET, get a certain amount of scholarship or fellowship. So no, it's your concern. Maybe the student will get monthly fellowship, but the field work, 6 months field work that student is going to do requires additional support. To do quality work, students require support. So have you identified some donors who can provide financial support in the chosen field of research, so that students' work, field work, is completed and is not hindered, or the quality of work is not affected by the lack of adequate funds, which may not be provided by the university. Then as a thesis supervisor, you are supposed to have a good network with the researchers, and this includes international researchers and national researchers, whoever is visible in your field of research, and whoever has published a few good papers, basic papers in the area of research in prestigious and international peer-reviewed journals. You have to have a network with them, internationally and nationally, and a sound understanding of research designs used by the earlier researchers. this is again a very important point. I often see students writing in their thesis that they have used either a purposive sampling or a convenient sampling or a random sampling without justifying why purposive or why convenient or random sampling was required and what care was exercised in selecting samples by following these techniques. Rarely in social sciences, students have a good understanding of sample designs. I tell them that both thesis supervisors and students should read material on sample designs in good surveys in the country. See the sample design of National Sample Survey. See the sample design of Human Development Survey. See the sample design of National Family Health Survey or other important surveys. LASI, now a recent longitudinal study of aging has been started. So what sample design these big studies have used in the past? And then you need to reflect on why in your research a sample choice needs to be different from the choices made by researchers in the past. Second mistake, so this was the academic mistake. Now, second mistake that thesis supervisors make is the mistake of not providing enough motivation to work. One of the important roles of thesis supervisors is to provide motivation to work. And remember that a researcher has to spend 4 to 5 years on PhD research. And this is the age at which students have many struggles in life, in academic life, in work life, in family life, pressures from the family, pressures from peers, pressures from society, and they have frustrations on many fronts and could occasionally be depressed. When they are depressed, when they are stressed, when they have any mental disorder, then as a thesis supervisor, I have always taken it to be my responsibility to help the student through counseling, or if need arises, taking them to a psychiatrist or giving them right kind of advice as a guardian so that they can come out of their depression, stress, or other mental conditions. A responsible thesis supervisor is a good counselor. And to help the student in such distress, a responsible thesis supervisor is a good counselor and a motivator. The thesis supervisors give time to students and meet the students quite regularly. You know, I have seen some thesis supervisors who do not give time to PhD students, or PhD student wants to see them, wants to discuss something with them, and they say, see me after 2 months. And this is very irresponsible. I think a good supervisor has an open door policy, at least for his or her own PhD students, that whenever they have any academic difficulty or even personal difficulty, they can approach the thesis supervisor anytime, and their problems are resolved to the extent thesis supervisor can help. The third mistake is the mistake of treating students as secretaries or assistants. I will not speak much on this, but many students from different universities and students from even prestigious universities and institutions have shared that they face a problem from the thesis supervisor. What kind of problems? When thesis supervisors treat them as secretaries or assistants, what happens? Not that they are not treated as junior partner in the research process. And some examples can be using students in teaching and evaluation beyond the norms of the university. This is not even seen as a mistake. In most universities, this happens, and this is not even seen as a mistake. It's not seen to be unethical. I understand that students who are on GRF or CSIR scholarship or other kinds of scholarship are supposed to work or give certain hours to the department every week, and they can be assigned any academic work for those hours. Like in IITs, work can be assigned, but it has to be a routine kind of work. You cannot engage your students in delivering lectures, but sometimes thesis supervisors may forget these things, and to save his time and efforts, thesis supervisor can use students in teaching for time. First of all, thesis supervisor is not supposed to involve them in teaching or give lectures in the class. They are not appointed for that purpose. So that is wrong. Using students in teaching is wrong, but students can be given, say, assignments to be checked, or for routine kind of academic things for those many hours which are part of the guidelines or policies of the scholarship or the institute. You should also not, as a thesis supervisor, you are also not expected to get answer books of your classes by the students. Maybe sometime, if it is routine and you are using objective type question paper, and that time required for this kind of work will not exceed the time your student must spend on academics in the department or with you, it's okay, but not more than that. Then using students for personal and non-academic work. Sometimes thesis supervisors also tell students, assign non-academic or personal or family or other types of works, and this is just not acceptable. We have, at least I have heard about horror stories of this type, that thesis supervisors are taking work at home or some personal kind of thing, or using students to resolve their personal issues which are of no academic nature. Then telling students not to interact with other faculty members. Some thesis supervisors want to keep their work so discreet that they tell students not to interact with other faculty members or their students, and not to disclose what they are doing. Research is an open process. Of course, some aspects of research require secrecy till the time findings of the research are published, but too much of secrecy, so that you are not, that student is not allowed to interact with other faculty members or other researchers in the department, that is also a mistake. How will a student learn? A student has to develop knowledge in several fields. Just pursuing a single research problem without exposing to what is happening in the subject in other departments or under other thesis supervisors, what work is being done by other students in the department, what are their perspective, what kind of theoretical framework. Actually, our students should discuss their problems among themselves more frequently than they do. And for this, it is the responsibility of the thesis supervisor to encourage them to do so, at least not become an obstacle in their interaction with students of other guides or students themselves. Then asking them, I have also seen this kind of thing, that you accept students because that is part of your promotion, that unless you have supervised so many students, or unless you have written so many papers, you will not be considered for the next position, associate professorship or professorship. So when they want to become professors, uh, uh, associate professors accept a large number of students and can write on their CV that they are guiding 5, 6, or 7 PhD students at a time. And if they become professor in the next round of interviews, then they start discouraging students, or they will not take interest in students' work, or may clearly tell them to change the supervisor or go to other people. This is a mistake that many thesis supervisors make. So asking them to change the supervisors once they become professor, or once they have achieved the academic position they were aspiring for, after writing on their CV the number of students they have guided. Then there is another mistake, fourth mistake, I would say, mistake of returning students' papers, chapters simply by saying that they are not good and should be written again. This is very, very common, and this is not right. In fact, what is expected from thesis supervisors, that he or she uh, needs to say clearly what is lacking in them. Your student has written something. A student has written a paper based on review of literature, and you say that I'm not satisfied, and the student should write it again. Now, student has no clue to what is wrong in the paper, what more paper, what more needs to be done, and what kind of books, what kind of articles students should read, or what is exactly lacking in the review paper or review chapter, and exactly what is to be done. You, as a thesis supervisor, you need to tell the students clearly how to improve the papers or thesis chapters further. You need to tell them clearly, and tell them this in time. Do not send the mail that I have seen your paper or I have seen your chapter, meet me sometime next month. Now, student is clueless. What will the student do for 1 or 2 months? You are asking them to meet after 2 months. What will the student do during these 2 months? They are clueless. They do not know how to improve the paper, or what is lacking in the chapter or in the paper. So give them right kind of advice, tell them what is lacking, and to remove that lack, what exactly has to be done. Is their methodology of review of literature wrong? Is their sampling design wrong? Why is it wrong? Why is sampling methodology not correct? And does it mean that if they are using purposive sampling, they have failed to specify what is exactly the purpose for drawing the sample that they are drawing, and to what extent they are justified academically to go for this kind of purposive sampling, or if they have used the random sampling procedure, have they actually looked at the sample size requirement? Have they applied the right kind of formulae or right kind of methodology to determine sample size? Or do they have the complete list of all the population units before they can, or sampling frame? Do they have a right kind of sampling frame? Do they have the right kind of methodology to generate random numbers or to identify the samples from the larger sampling frame? So you tell them these things clearly. Otherwise, you are making a mistake and you are not uh, doing your responsibility, your job uh, properly. Then fifth mistake is the thesis supervisors are also responsible, I will say, for lack of quality checks on students' data. Supervisor must know how is data being collected. If the student is making any mistake, Maybe supervisor can also go to the field if it is a field work based research. If it is experimental research and work is being done in the lab, then I will expect that supervisor is in complete knowledge of what is happening in the lab. Otherwise, if it is fieldwork based kind of work, then I would advise that the supervisor should also go to the field sometime for back check, for quality checks on students' data. Uh, and some students, some irresponsible students, not good students, may have the tendency to cook up the data. This is very common in national level surveys. Also, these things are identified commonly. So you have to ensure that students are not doing this and students are not plagiarizing from anywhere. Another mistake would be that publishing papers or presenting papers in international conferences based on students' work without giving them the authorship or even acknowledgement. You want to prove your scholarship, you want and to take the credit of presenting a paper or publishing a paper, and you take data or maybe even written paper from the student and publish this or present this in the conference, in an international conference in your own name without giving due credit to a student. If a research work is based on the PhD work of students, then I would say that students should be the first author who has actually done the work, and supervisor should be the second author who has given the ideas or who has guided the student, who has introduced student to a network of scholars nationally, internationally, who has helped the students in arranging for funds from various sources for buying equipment, for designing experiment, and for conducting the field work, etc., etc. And I have also heard that in some extreme cases, in some state universities, thesis supervisors have asked students to share their fellowship money. And this comes under unethical behavior. But unethical behavior is not a behavior which is completely absent from university departments of India. And those who have knowledge of the situation in India will agree with me that yes, there are aberrations and there are instances in which the thesis supervisors ask students to share their fellowship money. Or the thesis supervisor may ask the students to buy books or some computer equipment or something from students' fellowship money for the thesis supervisor. Now, and I am fully aware of this kind of situation, even in some best institutions, asking students to pay for books and journals or for equipment or for chemicals or for things required in the research process from which students are not gaining. Thesis supervisor only is gaining, happens, and this is wrong. Also, unethical thing is that earlier these things were not said or formulated or formalized in the university departments, but now there is a greater concern about these things. And some universities, including IITs, have also come up with clear guidelines regarding ethical behavior, building romantic relationships with students of opposite sex or sexual harassment. By things, doing or saying things with which students are actually not comfortable. They may not always tell the thesis supervisor directly and in all situations because their career is at stake and they depend administratively, academically a lot on the thesis supervisor. But it does not give license to thesis supervisors to indulge in sexual harassment or to develop romantic relationships with the students. Also, and you are not supposed to discriminate against women in general, minorities, and other identities, which starts with the very admission process in university. And several works have been done on these issues, how various types of biases, prejudices, stereotypes, discriminations against women, minorities, and other identities, linguistic identities, regional identities operate in university departments. And if you also do this, that is a mistake, and you are not actually doing a socially responsible thing. Now, what happens when thesis supervisors make these mistakes? The country is not recognized at the international level. Some journals, I'm told that some journals do not publish papers based on Indian data or data collected by Indian scholars, because they cannot trust the quality of data from India or from specific institutes or universities or under certain supervisors. Supervisors also do not grow as the area expert. If I'm guiding some students on A, some students on B, some students on C, I cannot develop expertise in any area. So this harms me also. This harms thesis supervisors. They do not grow as the area expert. And this is one reason why our universities and institutions are failing to produce first-class international and national scholars in different areas. That as a community, we are nowhere in social sciences. I'm more familiar with situation in sociology. How many sociologists of international repute we have produced on the basis of their research and scholarship? Answer is very pessimistic. And this has something to do with the research supervision also. Ideally, you must pick up as a supervisor, you are interested in something, you are a scholar in some area, you know the data, methodology, networks, resources in some area. You can develop a conceptual framework in which your colleagues, your peers in your country or other countries are also interested, and then you make a contribution. Also, with ad hocism and the kind of mistakes that supervisors make, students remain directionless even after submitting the thesis and have no idea of where and how to make a career. And this is leading to wrong choices at the entry point in faculty, because institutions and universities need faculty. Old faculty members are retiring, or they are aging, or they are not taking so much in. They do not have that much of enthusiasm for research. So they have to be replaced by younger faculty, and we need to appoint good assistant professors, lecturers, visiting faculty, contractual faculty, and so on. So if a student is not properly trained by a thesis supervisor, because the thesis supervisor was himself or herself not trained properly or had not excelled in that area of research, then we are making wrong choice. We have to appoint some people, but later on we feel, or the seniors feel, that a wrong choice was made. And one reason why wrong choices are made is that the thesis supervisors themselves were not experts or scholars in the fields in which their students have worked. Also, thesis supervisors must know that your job is not finished when the thesis has been submitted. Please make your students responsible citizens of India. Values. A student has spent five years, sometimes 6 years, and in some extreme cases even 7 years in research. And at this crucial stage of life forming stage, from say age of 21 to 26, 27, what he learns as values of the academic community, of the society, is very important for shaping his career, his attitudes, his beliefs, or her attitudes, her beliefs, and the whole world view. So make your students responsible citizens of India, free from prejudices and biases against any section of society. So I will say that thesis supervisors, if they take the position that they are not concerned with the development of students as ethical persons, this is not their concern. They may say this is not their concern. So they are not responsible if a student behaves unethically. I would say, okay, you are not responsible, but have you tried to talk to student why is it important to conform to ethical guidelines, and how does one gain from ethical life in the long run? So thesis supervisors must work and develop the courage. And our ultimate goal is that thesis supervisors have done what they have done, but we have to produce future faculty members uh, uh, who work and develop the courage to state the truth in academics and also in life. So, and there is a lot of expectations from thesis supervisors in this regard. Friends, thank you. Mike, let me also tell that my comments are very, very general, and although they are all based on experiences. If you talk to me personally, I can give you illustrations of everything. My comments are very general and they do not say anything about all the supervisors. I'm not saying that all the thesis supervisors in India are bad or irresponsible or not doing their job properly. But there are, and I also agree, I know that there are many ideal supervisors and many students have been able to do good work and publish in good journals, international journals, A category, B category journals, and become good faculty members subsequently in universities and institutions. Friends, so these are 5 mistakes: academic, administrative, ethical, relational, which I have mentioned in this presentation. I hope that the new faculty members in universities and academic institutions will benefit from watching this video. Nobody told us anything about it. When we started our career, like when I became lecturer in IIT Kanpur, nobody gave it was the job of my seniors at that time to guide me properly. So I made many mistakes. Many of the mistakes which I mentioned in this presentation have been made by me also. I'm not suggesting through this video presentation that I am great. I have made these mistakes, but somebody has to tell the younger faculty members what is the right path to grow in academics and to guide the PhD students. Before you make somebody a scholar with ethical values, you need to be a scholar of some importance, some eminence, and you have to follow ethical behavior. Thank you very much.